How does the theology of the body answer the modern culture? Well, first off, the theology of the body was not just a collection of talks that John Paul II gave from 1979 to 1984. The theology of the body was simply the title that John Paul II chose to identify the timeless, age-old teachings of the church that have been re-articulated in a synthesis that actually reaches us today, that John Paul II gave us. And so the theology of the body is directly answering the modern culture's cry for meaning, for the why behind what the church has been teaching for centuries, or rather, what God designed us to be for centuries. Because the church doesn't teach something arbitrarily. In other words, it's not true because the church teaches it. The church only teaches it because it's true. The church was established by Christ, who is the way, the truth, and the life, so as to help us identify what God himself has revealed to humanity, not by arbitrarily choosing what's right or wrong, but like a cafeteria lunch line. This is what I want, this is what I believe, this is what I agree with. No. The Catholic Church is the fullness of truth. Not because the Catholic Church knows the fullness of truth in the sense of having an ability to know every single thing that God knows, but rather it is given the grace of God and the blessing of God to hand on this truth through the centuries in ever deepening ways. So the church's truth about sexuality, about marriage, about family is unchangeable and beautiful. But our understanding of it, our ability to articulate it in ways that reach the human heart, shift with times and cultures. It deepens over time, in fact. When John Paul II gave us the theology of the body, he was answering a question that had been asked about 400 years before by people like René Descartes, when he said that phrase, "I think, therefore I am." And in his actual writings, he even said not to take his words out of context. Now, this is René Descartes, okay? A lot of people really subscribe to the Cartesian worldview where they just believe, yeah, I think, meaning I have thought, I have a consciousness, therefore I can prove that I exist because of that. But outside of that, I can't really prove existence in any way. But all that has devolved into, over the last 400 years, has been putting the idea in people's minds that it's not just I think, therefore I am, it's I think, therefore I am whatever I think I am. And that has created a lot of confusion and instability in the culture. Now, what was the context of what René Descartes was getting at? Well, he was trying to prove the existence of God through a radical doubt of God's existence. That sounds terrifyingly reckless and unhelpful, perhaps, but I would say it was perhaps God allowing someone to ask that question so that he, through the slow passage of time and sadly the loss of so many people who bought into that radical doubt, that God in fact does exist. Because that radical doubt, while ensnaring a lot of people to literally just not believe in God and live their lives according to that, has actually proven itself to be really from the father of lies. Satan himself twists the thoughts of men. It's okay to doubt and to question and to seek deep answers that are adequate and helpful. And I believe that's what someone like René Descartes was perhaps doing. But I would say that John Paul II was actually providing the fullness of love and meaning behind that radical doubt that led to things like communism and Marxist principles of class warfare, because there is no meaning except for the strength of man's achievements in an industrialized society to measure and calculate and expand through conveyor belts of machinery and efficiency. No, that led to a vacuum of darkness. Think of Nazi Germany, the phrase over the Auschwitz concentration camp, Arbeit macht frei, which is in German means work will set you free. As if we have to work ourselves to death, as if man was made for work. No, 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 no. Man was not made for work. Work was made for man. That class warfare extended to the male-female difference, as if we're in this never-ending battle of the sexes competing against each other. When in truth, we shouldn't be competing. We should be complementing, working together to celebrate the sexual difference so that we can build a better world. 2 plus 2 equals 3 plus 1. They're both 4, but they look and operate differently. So men and women look and operate differently, but they are still in complementarity with one another, working together. And so it's the same with the rich and the poor. It's the same with people in different political spectrums and ideologies, people of different faiths and traditions. We have to learn to communicate and work together in ways that can actually help answer this modern culture. The difference with the Catholic Church, though, and what John Paul II gave us in his theology of the body, was that he was providing a fullness of truth that was based on revelation from God himself. When Jesus became human, entered into our humanity, the Incarnation, the Word became flesh and dwelt among us, lived with us. And while we crucified him and he died, he rose from the dead. And it is that incarnate sacramentalization of our human bodily existence that entered into time through the establishment of the Catholic Church, so that we can have a reliable, stable, deep gold mine of goodness, truth, and beauty that communicates the love of God to us perfectly, even if the people within it stumble and fall and miss the truths that the Church is trying to proclaim. And so when you think of the theology of the body, think of it like the study of God as it relates to our bodily existence, and how that can help us see that our subjective experiences can become a lens by which we adequately interpret our relationship with the transcendent God who is sovereign and distant and mysterious, who then chose to enter into our humanity in an intimate way so that we could get to know him, so that we could see this invisible God who is love. The theology of the body answers the modern culture by simply reversing René Descartes' adage, because it's an untwisted version of this. Okay, you radically doubted the existence of God, that's fine. If that led you to a vacuum, though, keep digging, because you're so close to the gold mine of the Church. The desire for the deep answers that the modernists of the Protestant Reformation and the Enlightenment era were seeking was actually found in the Church, in the fullness of revelation. Because it's not I think, therefore I am. It's I am, therefore I think. I am a human being. I am a being, a creature of God. Therefore, I have the capacity to dream, to wonder, to imagine, to love, to be grateful for that gift of life that we've been given. And it's concrete, it's stable, it's reliable, and it's eternal if we have the eyes to see it, so that we don't just, again, propagate the species, but rather we propagate the gospel. In fact, culture is just people. Culture is just the beliefs, the habits, the lifestyles, the perceptions, the worldviews, and the influences of various people in their actions that affect different laws and religious beliefs and whole societies. And so if you can surround yourself with the kind of people that aren't going to create an echo chamber of despair or a vacuum of emptiness, but rather a life of love, of meaning, of fullness, those people are the ones who will renew the face of the earth through the grace and mercy of God, the sacraments of the Church, because we will have redeemed and renewed and transformed our understanding of sexuality so that we can embrace our concrete bodiliness and allow that to guide us into a future lifestyle of deep joy and hopefully unending happiness with God and the communion of saints forever. If that doesn't answer the modern culture's longing for meaning, I don't know what else will. That is how the theology of the body is both an answer to the culture of death and the very seed that can grow into a civilization of love.